Good evening. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. The Israeli cabinet tonight failed again to take any action on a government report about last year's Beirut massacre. The cabinet of Prime Minister Begin did agree to accept in principle the report's findings, but it put off until at least tomorrow any formal decision. That report held several top Israeli officials responsible for the slaughter of more than 700 Palestinian civilians, even though Lebanese Christians did the actual killing. Bob Fall is in Jerusalem.
In Israel, the crisis is in a holding pattern. After a 3-hour cabinet session, Mr. Begin's government still couldn't decide what to do about its embattled defense chief. But Ariel Sharone has made up his mind. He's not quitting. It's not that Sharone doesn't have friends here. Early tonight, about 1,000 enthusiasts swarmed all over their hero, beseeching him to stay on the job. Later, at a diplomatic reception in Tel Aviv, Sharone wasn't exactly dancing up a storm, but if he's disturbed by the storm swirling all around, it doesn't show. Today, he told military officers that he won't be surprised if he's sacked, but that he will never voluntarily resign. Fire Sharone? That, Begin told the head of one religious faction, would, quote, never happen. Sharone's critics, however, say Begin doesn't have much choice.
If Mr. Sharone will not voluntarily resign his office as Minister of Defense, then the Prime Minister will have practically no option but to resign himself.
And there are signs that is exactly what the Prime Minister will do, will resign and seek elections soon, knowing that until they're held, his cabinet would stay on as a caretaker government and that Sharone would stay on as defense chief. So the government is trying to line up support for early elections, and support is growing.
Early elections is the best thing. We'll go to the electorate, and they are the best judge.
Elections could get Mr. Begin off the hook. With them, he could accept the commission findings, then turn around and defend Sharone and the military leaders as men who were merely doing what the government wanted. So elections are Begin's way out, a way to accept the commission of inquiry and to undermine it. Bob Fall, CBS News, Jerusalem.
It was Iraq's turn today to claim a victory in its stubborn war with Iran. The Baghdad government said its forces sank 3 Iranian naval vessels in the Persian Gulf, but Iranian guns shelled the refinery city of Basra and 3 other Iraqi border towns. More on the fighting from Larry Pentak in Baghdad.
A war which refuses to fade away. 29 months after it began, the conflict between Iran and Iraq has flared again. Once more, the desert is strewn with the dead. Iraqi TV cameras recorded these scenes of the fighting in the past 2 days. Baghdad claims its forces halted a fresh Iranian attack today, after 10 hours of fierce fighting. Tehran has proclaimed this the final offensive, time to coincide with the anniversary of Khomeini's revolution. It's the 4th major Iranian effort to break through into Iraq since Khomeini's forces turned the tide of the war in their favor last spring. Iran's earlier efforts were centered mainly in the southern Basra region. This time, Iran has struck further north. The apparent objective, sever Iraq's key north-south highway at the garrison town of Al-Amara, less than 40 miles west of the front, cutting off Iraq's southern port of Basra and the country's access to the Gulf. Baghdad reports huge Iranian losses, but won't disclose its own. The claims are impossible to confirm, but scenes from the front do seem to indicate Iran is once more using suicidal human wave assaults to wear down Iraq's defenses. Larry Pentak, CBS News, Baghdad.
The return last weekend of former Gestapo officer Klaus Barbie to France has shaken that country, but it now also is making some waves in Washington. CBS News reporter Rita Braver has learned that the Justice Department is interested in possible U.S. involvement with Barbie. The department is considering an investigation into reports that the United States helped Barbie get out of Germany after World War II. Barbie reportedly worked with U.S. intelligence against the Soviet Union.